Welcome back, my wonderful friends, to our channel. If you are a fan of amazing dramas and captivating stories, you are exactly in the right place. In today's video, we have prepared a recap of an incredible series that will steal your heart from the very first moment and make you live every single detail alongside the characters. Before we dive into the events, please support us by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment below with your thoughts. Your support helps our family grow even bigger. Grab your favorite drink and let's begin. The story begins with a girl from a small, simple village in South India. It was a quiet place where life moved slowly, where everyone knew and loved one another, and barely knew anything beyond the borders of their own tiny world. But this girl was different. Ever since she was a child, she carried a deep dream in her heart to travel to South Korea. At first, she didn't even fully understand why. It started with something simple, a picture she hung on her bedroom wall. Meanwhile, in a far-off place, young people in Korea were preparing, moving, and traveling, all for reasons that seemed connected to her in one way or another. What exactly was the link between them? To understand that, we need to go back in time a few years. Our heroine, Shimba, was once just an ordinary child. One day, her school organized a play about historical figures. Some students played the roles of famous leaders, while others took on roles like Mother Teresa. Shimba was chosen to play the role of Queen Shimbalam. At the time, she didn't know much about this queen, but as she learned more, she discovered something that changed her life forever. The queen had once traveled all the way from her village to Korea and spread her culture there. Even today, Koreans still use certain words connected to her legacy. This role changed everything. For the first time, Shimba felt special. Everyone started treating her like a queen, even calling her by that title. When she saw the pride in her father's eyes, it moved her deeply. She fell in love with that character, and through her, she fell in love with Korea itself. From that exact moment, her obsession began. She started with the simplest things. She learned how to eat with chopsticks and how to cook ramen just like they do in Korea. Then she moved on to learning the language. Her simple neighbors thought she was just studying English, but in reality, she was building a bridge toward her dream. Later on, music became a part of her journey too. But to tell the truth, it wasn't just Korea that she loved. There was someone else. His name was Mani, her classmate. He loved her silently, and she trusted him enough to share her dream with him over and over again. She would talk non-stop about traveling to Korea. One day, Mani jokingly told her, "Well, it's simple. Just go to the train station, buy a ticket to Korea, and that's it. You'll get there." Of course, she actually went and tried, only to realize how foolish that idea was. Her father laughed later and scolded her gently, saying, "What nonsense! Since when do people travel to Korea by train?" After that, he asked her to stay with him and help out in his restaurant, and she did. Deep down, she knew her father hoped she would take over the place one day, develop it, and carry on his legacy. But her heart was elsewhere. Korea was still her only dream. Because of this, she often heard her parents arguing. Her mother was angry because she hadn't given up on this unrealistic dream yet, but her father was softer. He believed it was just a phase and that she would eventually get tired and forget about it. But she didn't. She grew up and her dream only grew stronger. Eventually, she went to the bank, trying to get a card so she could finally travel. But her application was rejected. The manager simply didn't trust her. What guarantee did he have that she would return the money? What if she ran off to Korea and vanished? However, after her persistence, he suggested something else. If you really want this, apply for a scholarship in Korea. And that changed everything. Shortly after, officials actually came to her village asking about her home, and her life. When her mother found out, she was absolutely furious. Not only had her daughter not forgotten the dream, but she was secretly chasing it behind their backs. Her father was upset too, but he was gentler. He went to her and said, "The next time you want something, just tell me first." He was ready to support her, but he had his own plan as well. He wanted her to get married, settle down, and eventually take over the restaurant. Confused and emotional, she went to the person she loved, Mani. She found him at the bar where he worked. She called him repeatedly before he finally answered, but he was no longer the same. Life had been harsh on him. He was drowning in debt. When she asked him when he would speak to her father about their future, he hesitated. He said, "I can't right now. I'm a failure. Your father will never accept me, and I'm already suffering from the debts my own father left behind." Despite everything, she forgave him. A few sweet words from him were enough to soothe her heart. Then came the village festival. During the celebration, her father noticed how close the two had become. So he approached Mani directly and said, "Son, all your friends have married and settled down. What about you? Aren't you planning for the same?" Mani looked at him calmly and replied, "I know what is best for me." When her father realized that his daughter loved a boy who took no real responsibility, he was deeply shocked. From that moment on, he made a firm decision. Right in front of her, he announced that they would start looking for a groom for her, wasting no time at all. The very next day, they brought a groom to meet her. Of course, she refused immediately, but her parents insisted that she at least sit down and meet him. Surprisingly, the young man was respectful, polite, well-mannered, and had a stable job with a good salary. He even listened carefully when her parents told him about her love for Korea and her dream of traveling there. Then he said something unexpected. He promised her that if they married, they could even spend their honeymoon in Korea. What's more, he confessed that he knew she already loved someone else and he didn't mind. All he asked was for her to accept him, but even so, she refused. Then he quietly promised her that he would try to stop this marriage. However, behind her back, he betrayed her trust. He told her parents that he agreed to the marriage, and preparations began immediately. Fear gripped her heart. She sent countless messages to Mani, egging him to come and save her. But when he finally showed up, he was annoyed and resented her constant pressure. He kept telling her to stop pressuring him and to give him more time, saying that he would eventually be ready. In a state of despair, she grabbed his hand, pleading with him. At that exact moment, her father saw them. He rushed angrily toward Mani, struck him, and warned him to stay away from his daughter and stop playing with her feelings. Then he turned to his daughter and asked her to come with him. But when he saw her still clinging to Mani, something broke inside him. He said, "So you have chosen him?" Without another word, he turned around and walked away. She broke down, drowning in tears. Her father had misunderstood her, but the damage was already done. Shortly after, she made her decision. She ran away with Mani. They went to a friend's house and stayed there, hiding from everyone. Mani promised her that he would fix everything, that he would get money, take out a bank loan, and arrange their visas to Korea, and that they would travel together, work there, and start a new life. For the first time, she felt happy. She was finally going to achieve her dream, but at the same time, her heart ached. She had left her family behind, especially her father, who was now hurt and deeply disappointed in her. Soon, Mani returned with good news. He had arranged the visas and tickets, but on the day of travel, he was late, very late. So she went to the airport alone. She called him on the way, and he told her to go ahead and board the plane, saying he was already on his way in a taxi and would meet her there. While she was waiting, tense and anxious, she called her mother to reassure her and told her she was leaving for Korea. But instead of comfort, her mother's voice came through harsh and angry. "So you are really leaving, using your father's money without even meeting him one last time?" She froze in her tracks. She asked, "My father's money? What do you mean?" And that was when the truth was revealed. Her father had come to see her. He tried to meet her, but Mani refused, telling him that she didn't want to see him. Despite that, her father did not leave empty-handed. He gave Mani money he had borrowed from the bank, and told him to give it to his daughter so she could fulfill her dream and travel. At that moment, her heart shattered. Even after everything, her father was still supporting her. But Mani, she suddenly felt as though he had abandoned her. She tried calling him over and over again, but he never answered. The truth was worse than she could have ever imagined. Mani had arrived at the airport, but not to travel with her. He hadn't even booked a ticket to Seoul. Instead, he booked a ticket to Mumbai to stay in India. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the betrayal. She boarded the plane all by herself. When she finally arrived and walked out of the airport in Korea, she was completely broken. Her dreams had come true, and at the cost of everything she loved. As she stood there, lost and burdened with worries, a stranger kindly handed her a piece of paper. On it was a simple message, a reminder that this was not the end, and that she could still start fresh. That small gesture gave her a glimmer of hope. She took a taxi to the hotel she had booked, but as soon as she arrived, she received a message from Mani, a video clip. In it, he insolently told her that he had done nothing wrong, and that because of his actions, she had finally reached the country she had always dreamed of. Her anger flared up. She was heartbroken and felt humiliated. The next day, she wandered the streets of Korea, still drowned in sadness. Trying to escape her thoughts, she walked into a convenience store and sat down with a drink, hoping to forget, even if just for a moment. That was when she saw it. Outside the store, a man was violently arguing with a girl, even striking her. Already wounded by her own betrayal, her anger toward men exploded. Without hesitation, she rushed outside, slapped him hard, and pulled the girl away to safety. She scolded her, calling her a fool, but deep down, she was talking to herself, giving advice she wished she had followed before being abandoned. Later, a family friend, a close companion of her father, called her. He told her that they now knew everything that had happened and asked her to come home, but she refused. She said, "I won't go back broken. This is my dream country and I am staying." She didn't even get to finish her sentence. Suddenly, the police arrested her. She was detained on charges of assault for hitting the man, who turned out to be the girl's boyfriend. But fate had another surprise in store. There was a photographer nearby who had accidentally recorded the entire incident, capturing ambushes. When the video was shown, it proved that she had acted in self-defense, trying to protect the girl. And just like that, she was finally released. At the police station, she boldly defended herself. She told the officer that she hadn't done anything wrong. She said, "In my country, if a man treats a woman like that, he deserves worse than a slap." With that, she walked away, proud and unshaken. Shortly after, she met the same young man who had helped prove her innocence. When he asked her what brought her all this way to Korea, she answered confidently, trying to look stronger than she actually felt. "I came here to work in a luxury hotel." She told him the name of the place. He couldn't help but laugh. Smiling, he said, "Well, good luck." She thanked him and went on her way. But after a few steps, she noticed something troubling. He was walking behind her. Her heart raced. Nervously, she asked, "Why are you following me?" He blinked in confusion, then pointed ahead. "This is the way to my mother's house." An awkward silence followed before he casually added that he had already paid for her drink the previous night and didn't expect to get his money back. Then he left. The next morning, she got ready for work, filled with hope. She boarded a bus and headed to the hotel she had mentioned. But when she arrived, she felt that something was not right. The place didn't look luxurious at all, and it looked nothing like what she had imagined. Confused and embarrassed, she turned around quickly to leave, and there he was again, the same young man. He smiled and confessed, "The moment you told me the name yesterday, I knew you had been scammed, but I didn't say anything. You wouldn't have believed me anyway." Frustrated, she told him to stop making fun of her. She desperately needed a job. So she asked him what he did for a living. He explained that he was a photographer. He shot food, restaurants, and similar places. He even owned a YouTube channel with around 3,000 subscribers. She sighed and said, "I need a real job. My relatives back home keep asking me what I am doing with my life." Understanding her situation, he decided to help her. He took her to a job bulletin board and began explaining each advertisement to her. She carefully noted down the jobs she could apply for. Then, realizing her biggest challenge, he gave her a small device, an instant translator, to help her communicate since her Korean was not very strong. The next day, her real journey began. She went from place to place looking for work, but nothing worked out. Some jobs rejected her, others didn't suit her, and in some places, she simply didn't feel comfortable. Exhausted and weighed down by worries, she sat by a river and began to cry. A nearby musician noticed her sadness and began playing a soothing melody, a tune that touched her deeply. For the first time in days, she smiled. The next day, her new friend returned with good news. He said, "I have found a job for you," and introduced her to a man who was looking for someone to take care of his elderly mother, clean the house, look after her, and keep her company. The old woman was completely unable to move, so she needed constant care. Having no better options, she agreed. The man warned his mother, saying, "I have hired someone new. She doesn't speak Korean well, and you have already scared away all the girls before her. Please, try to be patient this time." He and his wife explained everything to her, how the job goes, what she needs to do, and that they usually come home late from work. His wife, who was a bit strict, told her to make sure everything was cleaned properly. She nodded, but didn't pay much attention to that attitude. As soon as they left, she began working faithfully. She took care of the old woman with kindness, fed her, cleaned her up, and ensured her comfort. Everything went smoothly until one day she heard a strange noise coming from the woman's room. When she went to check, she found that something had fallen. A piece of decor had shifted out of place. It made no sense. She wondered, how could this fall? But when the son and his wife returned, she didn't want to cause them worry, so she kept silent. The next day, she tried to forget about it, but then she heard another noise. This time, she hesitated before opening the door. Instead, she bent down and looked underneath it. Someone was moving inside. Her heart stopped. Slowly, she looked through the keyhole and saw an eye staring back at her. Fear consumed her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Nightmares haunted her, each one worse than the last. Even the noisy neighbors outside began to infuriate her. At one point, she went out and screamed at them to quiet down, which terrified and silenced them. The next day at work, it happened again. Another noise. She approached the room trembling. Underneath the door, she could see movement once more. This time, she flung the door open suddenly, and what she saw shocked her to the core. It was the old woman, the very same woman who was supposed to be completely immobile, standing up. Not just standing either. She then pushed her and began threatening her. She couldn't understand a single word. Quickly, she pulled out the device, and the truth was unveiled. The old woman smirked. She said, "You are smart. You figured it out in just 3 days. The others took longer." Then her voice turned cold. "Tell anyone, and I will accuse you of theft. I will say you stole my son's watch." She froze in terror. The old woman leaned in closer. "Now come with me tomorrow." The next day, everything changed. The old woman secretly took her out to ride a small motorcycle she had been hiding from her son. They went shopping, bought clothes, laughed, and enjoyed the outside world together. Then they went to a sauna. Later, the old woman introduced her to a friend of hers, and the three of them began spending time together, going out and enjoying life. For a moment, things seemed normal again, but deep down, she missed her father more than ever. Unable to bear it any longer, she finally called a neighbor back home just to check on him. As usual, when her father's friend told her to come home, she refused. She said, "Not yet. I will return after I earn money and pay everything back." Over time, she grew closer to the old woman. One day, she finally opened her heart. She told her everything about her life, her struggles with her father, and even about Mani and how trusting him had almost ruined her. Then curiosity got the better of her. She asked her, "Why are you hiding the truth from your son? Why don't you trust him?" The old woman smiled faintly. She said, "It is not about trust." And so, her story began. Years ago, she and her husband owned a restaurant, and it was a very successful one. Their children were always around them, and life was full of warmth and happiness. But when the children grew up and married, they decided to live on their own. Shortly after that, her husband passed away. Everything changed. Her children started bringing their own kids, her grandchildren, and leaving them with her to raise. At first, she didn't mind. She thought, "This is my role as a grandmother." But slowly, she realized something painful. She was living for everyone else, catering to everyone's needs while forgetting herself. Therefore, she made a decision. She pretended to be weak, helpless, and someone who couldn't be relied upon. And it worked. Her children and grandchildren became independent, but in return, she became the one dependent on them. And even then, she wasn't happy. Hearing this story moved her deeply, but there was one detail that stood out more than anything else: the restaurant. She softly said, "I used to work in my father's restaurant too. I have experience. We could open one together." The old woman's eyes lit up. She loved the idea. Eager to help, the girl offered the only valuable thing she owned, her gold necklace, as a contribution to start the business. But the old woman refused. She said, "First, let's find a place." With the help of her friend, they began searching, but it wasn't easy. Every place they found was too expensive. Until one day, purely by chance, they discovered a restaurant that was about to relocate. They asked if they could rent it, and this time, luck was finally on their side. The owner agreed. Preparations began. Friends and neighbors gathered to help them clean, decorate, and set everything up. Soon, they opened their restaurant. They called it Grandma's Restaurant. The place quickly became loved by everyone. People talked about it, about the warmth, the feeling, and the taste of homemade food that filled every dish. Then, they introduced something new, a creative fusion that brought Indian and Korean flavors together. People loved it. The restaurant began to grow. Her friend helped promote it through videos and social media, bringing in more attention and customers. And every day after work, they would rush back home before the old woman's son returned to keep their secret safe. Finally, life seemed stable, happy, and peaceful. Wanting to give back, she also tried to help her friend. She suggested something new. "Why don't you gather our friends and form a band? You can shoot videos together and upload them to YouTube, but target foreigners. People outside Korea love K-pop. They will support you." The idea thrilled him. Everyone agreed, and soon they began filming. She enjoyed every moment, laughing, creating, and living freely. Then one day, she heard shocking news from her neighbor back home. Mani had been arrested. They told her that she should take advantage of this, file a case against him, and completely ruin him. But she refused. She chose to let go of the past and to focus on her new life, her friends, and her future in Korea. Everything was going perfectly. Until the old woman's son visited the restaurant one day. Someone had sent him photos of the place, telling him that there was a woman there who looked exactly like his mother. The moment he arrived, both of them hid. Later, while he was eating, he felt something familiar, the taste. It reminded him of his mother's cooking. His suspicions grew, but when he asked, the waitress assured him that someone else had prepared the
the food. He left, still anxious, and rushed home to check. Meanwhile, the two women raced back on their motorcycle. Fortunately, they arrived before him. That day passed by pure miracle. Later, she went to meet her friends. They were absolutely thrilled. An entertainment company had noticed them and wanted to sign them, but their happiness did not last long. There was a condition. They had to produce a music video first, and they had no money. Without hesitation, she decided to help. She offered to use her share of the restaurant's profits. She spoke to the old woman, asking for her share. At first, the old woman refused. She reminded her, saying, "You said you were saving this money for your father." But the girl smiled gently. She said, "I will always think of my father first. But in this situation, if I keep the money, only I will be happy. Whereas if I give it to my friends, we will all be happy." The old woman looked at her, then pulled her into a warm hug. She was convinced. She handed her the money, but they suddenly heard the sound of the front door. Her son and his wife had just returned home. The old woman quickly whispered to her, "Hide the money carefully and leave quietly." She nodded, trying to stay calm. When the son and his wife walked in, she greeted them normally, pretending everything was fine. Then she turned to leave, but the wife stopped her. "Wait. Bring me some water." As she reached for her bag, the wife suddenly snatched it and began aggressively searching through it. She screamed, "I told you she was a thief." Before she could even respond, they took the money from her and even threatened to kick her out. But at that moment, the old woman intervened. She said firmly, "This money is mine." Frozen in shock, her son stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. "So all this time you were pretending, and now you've even opened a restaurant with her?" She replied calmly, "And what is wrong with that?" Then she gave the girl back her money and sent her away. What followed was a heated argument. Her son became harsh and almost ruthless, insisting that she must stay at home, rest, and look after the children. But she refused. She shouted, "This is not what I want. I want to work just as I used to do with your father. You grew up and became who you are now because of that restaurant." But he wouldn't listen. The pressure, the pain, it all became too much to bear. Suddenly, she collapsed. When the girl heard the ambulance arrive, panic seized her. She rushed after them to the hospital, but there they wouldn't let her in. Her children refused to let her see the old woman, and even threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. So she waited, silently, patiently, until they finally left. Then she sneaked inside. She broke down crying by her side, praying and begging for her to be okay. And in that quiet moment, the old woman responded. She gently held her hand. After that, the girl left. In the taxi, she couldn't stop crying, but eventually she wiped away her tears and gathered her strength. She still had something to do. She went straight to her friends and gave them the money. They were overwhelmed with immense gratitude. Immediately, they began filming their music video, and she helped them every step of the way. Around that time, Mani tried to call her again, but she ignored him. Then suddenly, breaking news appeared. A powerful earthquake had struck her village. Without hesitation, she rushed back home. Her heart pounded heavily as she searched for her family until she finally found them safe and alive in the hospital. Relief washed over her. They welcomed her warmly, without blame and without anger. Then, a neighbor told her something unexpected. Mani had returned. He had even tricked the neighbor into giving him her number. She felt annoyed and refused to answer his calls. But then she learned something else. During the earthquake, Mani had helped her family, personally taking them to the hospital and staying by their side. However, this didn't change everything. It didn't erase what he had done. Eventually, he found her and apologized face to face. She looked at him calmly and said, "Thank you for everything that happened. Because of you, I became stronger. I have changed." But that didn't mean she would go back to him. She turned around and walked away. Shortly after, she received a video clip from her friend. In it, she saw a familiar face, the man she had met at the airport, the man who had quietly helped her from the very beginning. He revealed the truth that from the moment he saw her, she had left an impression on him, and jokingly said, "It seems like you'll soon be filming vlogs with your Korean husband." She laughed in surprise. Then, suddenly, all her friends appeared behind her. They had traveled all this way to visit her. Even he was there. Together, they visited her family. They spent time with them, exchanging cultures, laughter, and warmth. Her mother looked at her with pride, while her father smiled and said, "If you had just returned my money, I would have been happy. But now I am much happier. People from another country have come especially for you. If you want to travel again, go. I support you. And your mother and I will come to visit you too." Her heart filled with joy, and this time she left with their blessing. Back in Korea, the first place she went was the old woman's house, but it was empty and up for sale. No one was there. With a heart heavy with grief, she went to their restaurant. There, she found a message, a letter. In it, the old woman had written,
I never saw you as someone working for me, nor even as a partner. You were always like a daughter to me. Thank you for helping me find myself again. As she listened to the recorded message that her friend had saved, her eyes filled with tears. She missed her so deeply. She asked where she was now and if she could visit her, but the answer broke her heart. She had passed away a long time ago. She stood there, silent and grief-stricken. But after that, she made a decision. She would reopen the restaurant, not just as a business, but as a memory, a legacy, and a way to keep the old woman alive. And that is how the story ends. It is a story about dreams, loss, love, and self-discovery. A story that reminds us of something important. Sometimes, we put too much pressure on our parents, especially as they grow old. We expect them to keep sacrificing, to keep giving, just because they are our parents. But we forget that they are human beings too. They have dreams, they have desires, and they deserve to live their own lives just as we do. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Until we meet again soon, don't forget to show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Goodbye, my wonderful friends.